Shabbat Shalom. In our portion of Torah this week, Shmini, we read about sacrifices. It is Vayikra, Leviticus, after all, no surprises there. Some of the more colorful images that I spare you today have to do with Aharon's hands drenched in blood, passing dismembered animal heads toward the altar, and of course, fat, kidneys, and the protuberance of the liver being involved. Oh, and the entrails, lots and lots about the entrails. Tarbut students should be grateful they are not becoming Bar Mitzvah this morning. Amid these fairly gruesome sacrificial practices, our ancestors scream and fall to the ground, not, I presume, because of the gore, but because they are in such awe of God's power. This visceral process of offering grain and animals in fire to Adonai has moved them such that they have control over neither their tongues nor their legs. What an image and what a statement. An intense show of power from God, a raw and honest reaction from the people. This interaction, in my mind, is a most important snapshot of our covenantal relationship. On one side, we have the Almighty, who has made promises about nation and power time and again, who not so long before this scene of sacrifice literally split a sea in two so that we could escape from Mitzrayim. Through fire and smoke, our God is once again proving God's self to those entered into the covenant. And on the other side, we have a people ravaged by slavery, whose families and history only know bondage, at least one of whom thought we were better off under Pharaoh's rule than roaming the desert. Now, most Divrei Torah are going to encourage us to be moved by God's power, but today I instead have to speak with you in awe of our ancestors. I am so incredibly moved by their vulnerability here in this story. Think about it. Depending on which Israelite you ask, you might get either, I held on to hope this entire time, I believe in God, even though every family member as far back as I can trace died in slavery. Or you might get, God abandoned us, I have no God. But no matter where the Israelites fell on that spectrum, and I have to believe like us that they fell at a different place depending on the day, they let out cries and sank into the sand. Those who imagined this day are beside themselves with wonder and reward. Those who never imagined this day are bewildered with the same. So I ask us today, Bethel, when was the last time you were so moved that you were speechless? Or so moved that you blurted utterances without realizing it? Or so moved that you fell, perhaps literally, although I'll allow metaphorically, to your knees in awe? I won't ask you to share, that's a lot without preparing you. But I'd like to share as a way to tell some stories about my first weeks working at Bethel and as a way for you to get to know me as the new guy. So hi, my name is Forrest Yesnes, and I'm our new Director of Youth Engagement. I started working here at the end of January. I dove headfirst into USY lounge nights and supporting our Baruzi board members, tending to Bestie, our Shabbat morning education program, attending local and regional Shabbatonim, and of course planning the very important Purim Carnival. It's been a whirlwind, but this is my favorite kind of chaos. I'm kind of twisted that way. And so I'm here to tell you that as an educator and a youth worker, I feel moved beyond speech and have fallen to my knees in awe of the young people at Bethel. When my family and friends ask about my new work, the first thing I share is how moved I feel by the trust that our young people have extended and put in me almost right out of the gate. Teenagers have high standards. They sense incompetence. They can smell blood in the water. Like our ancestors, they have tons of faith and just as much doubt. But they have mostly been open to a new adult in their lives, and I have my colleagues and this congregation to thank for that. You've laid the groundwork that makes possible this sort of trust, that makes Bethel a comfortable space for young people, not just when they show up on occasion, but as they show up regularly. Whether they feel excited or skeptical about this role being filled after such wandering in the desert, the teens here have welcomed me, and that means more than I can say. I feel just as moved by how our teens have shown up for me as how they've shown up for each other. Between lounge nights, other USY events, and the many roles they play here on Shabbat mornings, our teen population spends hundreds of hours at Bethel every week. I've worked with young people in camp, synagogue, and youth group settings for 13 years, across all ages, and not one grade level or community I have served is as present with one another as Bethel's teenagers. And as incredible of a commitment as this is, I'm not even sure it's particularly conscious. They just keep showing up. They arrive with such ease, comfort, and readiness. It's a wonderful foundation on which to live out and build our youth community culture. But this is not just a testimonial drosh. I have a challenge for us. Just last week, we were told our story of the Exodus. As part of our Pesach traditions, we turned to the youngest at our tables and centered their voice, prioritized their questions. This might be my favorite thing about Jewish life. However, my great concern as an educator and as a youth worker is that this practice is reserved for just one or maybe 2 nights of the year. What of the other 360 plus nights? Are we prioritizing their voices, their questions, their critiques of the world then too? Or are we tuning out our youngest, removing platforms for them to poke and prod? Torah commands us to teach our children, to help them learn the laws, to distinguish between holy and mundane. But teaching doesn't always mean lecturing. It doesn't only mean dropping them off at Smith, at Talmud Torah, at Bethel. It means letting them inquire, not just allowing, but welcoming, encouraging their sharing, their critical thinking, their noise, and not only when it's convenient for us adults. Pesach nights are indeed meant to be different from all other nights, but are we satisfied with that when it comes to how we treat our young people, what they think, what they have to say, what they have to offer? In 2018, long before I worked here at Bethel, Rabbi Davis and I partnered on busing a group of Minnesota teens to Washington, D.C. to protest against gun violence. This was in the wake of the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, when 14 high schoolers and 3 staff members were murdered. We drove through the night to participate in the March for Our Lives. I held a sign that day, which now hangs in my office here, with an old text that you might know. The old shall dream dreams, and the youth shall see visions. This text often leaves the impression that older folks' time is through, and that younger folks' time is coming. But that's a misread. The time for all is now. Folks of every age belong at not just the Seder table, but the dreaming table and the visioning table. I am eager to liaise between the young people at Bethel and the adults here to make sure that young folks contribute to Bethel decisions, can be part of events, initiatives, and our incredible chavarot. And I want to make sure, too, that adults can teach and be taught by teens. Together, we'll build relationship across ages. It's such an honor to, like our ancestors before us, to be in awe of the divine, and in my case, to be in awe of the divine inside each of our young people as they show up here. I've witnessed this divine spirit in numerous ways in only just a few weeks. I can only imagine what the next months and years will bring. Let's dream it and envision it together. Shabbat Shalom.